everybody. All right, this is related to engagement, so I need you to engage. Hello. Hi. Thank you all so much for coming today. It's great to be here with you all. And before I introduce my special guest, well, first let me introduce myself. I'm Jessica Pucci. I am a professor of practice here at the Cronkite School, and it's my job to evangelize the practices of engagement with your audience and audience analytics here at the school. I want to first start off with a little pop quiz. I know you thought school was over for the day, but how many of you get news from social media by a show of hands? So that's most of you. That's actually better than the average. As of 2016, 62% of American adults got news from social media, and 67% of all American adults use Facebook. The next number down from that is that 66% of those who use Facebook get their news from it, which means at any given time, 44% of the population is getting news from Facebook in some way. So, of those of you who said that you get news from a social media network, how many of you only use one social network? So you all are very different. How many of you use two social networks? A few of you. How many of you use 3 or more? Most of you. Well, what's really interesting is that 64% of people get news from only one source. That's crazy, one source. 26% get news from only 2 sites, and 10% get news from 2 or more. So you guys are very different than the average American. And what's most interesting about social media as it relates to news is that those who use Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube are more likely to just happen upon news, whereas people who use Reddit, Twitter, they're more likely to seek it out. So all of this together has truly shaped the way that we certainly produce news as journalists and strategic communicators, but mostly it has drastically changed the way that we consume news, the way we find it, the way that we consume it, the way that we share it. So who better to bring into this conversation than someone from BuzzFeed, who is essentially the queen of social sharing and social content. And so I'd love to introduce to you Macy Thornton, who is the director of social media for BuzzFeed Entertainment in Los Angeles, where she leads a team who manages BuzzFeed's social strategy across many different platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the whole 9. But most importantly, she is a Cronkite grad. So welcome, Macy.
Thank you.
First, can you talk to us a little bit about your role specifically? How is social media structured at BuzzFeed, and what role do you play?
Yeah, definitely. So I am the director of social media, like Jessica said, for BuzzFeed Entertainment Group. Since BuzzFeed is still kind of a new company, we've reorged several times, and our most recent one was to create BuzzFeed Entertainment Group and then BuzzFeed News. So I'm technically not part of the news organization. I do work pretty closely with the news department because with social, a big part of that is promoting across all of our platforms and all of our different accounts. And so we kind of bring each other up. So because of that, I work really closely with the news team, but I'm not a part of it. And then I manage a team of 15 people in Los Angeles. And like Jessica said, we run all of our entertainment. So Tasty, Nifty, Top Knot, the BuzzFeed accounts, anything that's not news is run out of my team. So that's what we publish, where we publish it, and when we publish it.
Cool. So we're coming off a huge election and probably an even bigger post-election, news cycle. And so it's been an action-packed few months.
Yes.
That's a good way to put it. So I'm wondering, what have you observed in the past few months about social media's role in the news and how audiences find, react to, and share news?
Yeah, totally. So I have some visuals. Let's see if I can get this to start. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Okay. Cool. It looks so small on that screen, but hopefully you guys can see it up here. So I don't know if you guys have seen this website. If you haven't, it's a really cool Chrome extension that you can use. It's called Pollet Echo. And it actually can see all of your Facebook friends and the type of content that they're sharing. And I'm pulling this up because I think, to answer your question, like, ever since the election, we've really seen this huge divide. I'm sure you've all been thinking about it and talking about it a lot in classes, where if you kind of fall on one side of the spectrum, then you're only seeing content that kind of fits with the things that you believe in, and then if you're on another side, the same thing. And this does a really good job of kind of illustrating that. Like, this is my personal one, and you're seeing like a lot more on the left side kind of stick up, because those are the things that I'm clicking and engaging with. And I think a lot of people kind of want to blame Facebook for the fact that you're only seeing one type of content in your feed, but at the end of the day, Facebook is just created an algorithm, and you're the one that's commenting and liking the things that you want to like, and probably not doing the same with things that don't fit your same perspective. So one thing that BuzzFeed has, I just added this like yesterday because we just launched this new module. And we haven't done a ton of it, so I don't have a ton to say about it, but I just think it's a really interesting thing. It's called Outside Your Bubble, and it's a module that we're putting on news posts as they begin to take off. There's one person who's really curating it, and basically the idea is that on these news articles, we're trying to give the whole perspective. So, I think this turns into a video if I click it one more time. Cool. Yeah, so you can kind of see here, we're taking things from Reddit, from Twitter, from other news sources that are a different perspective than the one that you might jump to assume from our own article, so that you know, okay, maybe this is what I believe, but here's other things that people are seeing across the web, and you can kind of form your own opinion. And it's outside your bubble.
But so as someone who is kind of outside the formal news desk, how do you create content to maybe bring people into a news conversation who maybe doesn't otherwise want to start there? Or how do you bring somebody into that fold in an indirect way?
Yeah, totally. So I think that that's a really huge part of what my team does, because again, we're not, running these news accounts that are more about hard-hitting news and stuff like that, but we still, especially in this climate, like, everything you see on Facebook right now seems to be politically based, and we still want to be a part of that conversation in some way. So like this example, we posted this the night before one of the debates, and it's just like a little cheeky image about kind of getting out of the country, and it has 37,000 shares on one of our pages. So it's also, not only is it a way for the entertainment side of BuzzFeed to be a part of the conversation, but I think there's also a lot of people, like a lot of people in our audience who maybe they don't want to share the thing that's, more controversial or might upset some people, but something that's a little more cheeky can fit more with their identity and what they want to share. So another example that I have, we posted this right after the presidential election. It's a live video. And we totally could have posted this no matter what the outcome of the election was. And it's our most successful live video that we've ever posted, even bigger than the watermelon. And now it probably has like 1 million shares, but at the time it had 862,000 shares, which is pretty bananas. So yeah, we just do things like that like take a little, like just take it one step further and might be kind of a joke. One other example to really embarrass myself, but this might not necessarily come across as something news related, but after the attack in Paris in 2015, just because we're not news, we still felt like it wasn't really appropriate for the rest of that day to post content. But then the next day we were like, okay, it's still, everything feels so weird and sad, and what could we post that would kind of brighten people's spirits? And we had this video kind of ready to go, so I'll play a short clip just for your own entertainment.
I'm gonna cry. Wait, is this really happening? No, I'm crying. This is crazy. Like, look at this dog. And look at this dog.
Yeah, so we posted this the day after, and we had people on the ground in Paris that actually, like, I got an email from Ben Smith that was basically like, the reporters talked to some people who saw this video, and it actually was the first thing that made them smile since everything happened. So I think it's really cool that you know, even in times like that, we can still kind of give people a reason to smile or things like that. And then this kind of pigeonholes it, well, I guess you can, with the adaptation stuff.
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
So this slide is, there's 2 videos on here, and one is the first one that we posted in 2015, but then the short clip that I showed you, a year later, we were like, okay, that video did super, super well for us the first time. How can we kind of bring some new life into this video? So, you know, we had the hindsight of the fact that when people were sharing it the first time, a lot of them were sharing it with another woman who they knew that really loved dogs, and being like, this is so you, whenever you see a dog, you react like this, or this is so me. So we reframed it, we made it super short and square. We put the frame in the actual video, and we reposted it. And it didn't do as well as the first time, but it has like 326,000 shares, which is in our 99th percentile for shares on Facebook, so.
I'm curious how the news section of the company responds to this, because you kind of need both, right, to sustain a media business. You've got to have your attention grabbers, but you also need to produce news if you're BuzzFeed News. So are they happy with the attention that you're able to bring to the business as a whole with this content?
I think totally, because I mean, I think we've all seen that the news industry, I mean, now it's kind of taken on a whole new life with this new election, but you know, it was kind of starting to struggle, and it's hard for a news organization to make money. And so what's really cool about BuzzFeed is because we're a profitable company with our entertainment side, but we can fund like really incredible journalism because of that, and because we're all one company, versus otherwise I think sometimes it's hard to afford, like, you know, having people across the globe and doing really long-term investigative pieces that we can do.
And so you talked a bit about, you know, how you can take a piece of content that you created one day and change it up in another way. Can you speak to that a little bit more and talk about how you can take some of the content that you are investing a lot of time, money, and effort in, and adapt it for different platforms, different audiences, and how you might do that to target different audiences by adapting content?
Totally. So I have some examples again. So this first one, originally this was a post on BuzzFeed.com that a writer wrote. It's 30 awkward moments every short girl understands. 60 would be a lot. But it got 8.8 million views on the site, which is a lot of views, even on BuzzFeed. And so after that, instead of just seeing the success of it and being like, well, that's great, you know, let's move on, our video team in LA, I'm going to play this short clip for you guys, turned it into a video with the best beats from the post. Posted this video on YouTube and on Facebook, and on Facebook it actually got 17 million views, so it actually did like significantly better than the post had even done. And then from there, we also at BuzzFeed have a team called the Shorter Than Short Form team, and they do exactly what it kind of sounds like. They make really short content, so GIFs, images, and they also work on our Snapchat Discover channel. And one of the artists on that team created a little series with a cartoon with these same problems. And we posted it as an album with 4 pictures on the Story of My Life Facebook page, and it got over 1 million shares. So it did even better than the video and the post. So I think if you can keep building on the success of something, you can make it even better than the first time. I also have a Tasty example. So Tasty is BuzzFeed. So at the time, this was our most successful Tasty video, and it really is
So
magical. So yeah, we can watch this for a minute. Well, I don't know how long we want to go, but
No, let it go.
Okay.
Guys.
yeah, it's very satisfying.
Stylistically different from from the Tasty of today, right?
Yeah, so this was a very early on Tasty. So yeah, it's definitely changed and evolved since then, but the meat of it's still kind of there. It's my favorite part. Yeah, but so that first type of adaptation was kind of taking one frame and then changing it for different formats. But this one is more about taking the exact same piece of content, but changing it in technical ways, because every platform really is different and there's different things that you should do on them. So on Facebook, for example, all of our food videos are square. But on YouTube, we make them 16 by 9. So we posted this on YouTube, and I mean, food videos don't tend to do nearly as well for us on YouTube, but it has almost 300,000 views, which isn't bad. On Pinterest, we turned it into like a nice long image that would look really good on mobile, and it has over 25,000 repins. On Twitter, we made it into a GIF, which is super like of the most satisfying part of it. On Instagram, we turned it into a shorter video, and it has over 60,000 engagements. And then to kind of take it to the next level, Ned, who is one of the try guys at BuzzFeed, he made a video of himself watching and reacting to the video, and it got close to 1 million views on his Facebook page. And then we also did post it on BuzzFeed.com. While we totally are a distributed company and we're not super focused on getting people back to BuzzFeed.com, we do still think about it. And a lot of times, if something's doing well on all of our other social platforms, it can still do really well on BuzzFeed.com. And this has close to 1 million views on the site. And then because we're at Cronkite, I wanted to add in a news example too. So we just posted this about a week ago, I believe. But it's just a really cute, we call this like social news, so it's really lighthearted things that we think people will want to share. So originally we wrote the post, a reporter wrote the post and put it on BuzzFeed.com, and it was performing super well. So then it was turned into a video that's sort of like a slideshow format. So it has text, it has images that are also in the post, and we post that on Facebook because videos tend to perform better on Facebook just because of the way that their algorithm works. On Instagram, we post the headline with some images from the post, and then the caption tells like the best part of the story. So if you're just scrolling through, you can kind of get like the meat of the story just through Instagram. And then on Twitter, because you can post more often and more things, we posted both the video and a link to the post with an image, and the video ended up outperforming the image, but you know, that changes. So we like to try both and see which one might perform better.
Can you talk a little bit about audience and the importance of attempting to understand your audience before creating content?
Yeah, totally. So I'm sure some of you might know this and others are like, oh, I didn't even know these were BuzzFeed, but BuzzFeed has so many different Facebook pages and YouTube channels and Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts. And that's really because we've found over the years that if you can segment your audience and give them exactly what they want, then the content will be more successful than if you just have one blanket page like BuzzFeed and you try and throw everything at it. So I have a couple examples that I think will make this make a little bit more sense. So I think I have 3 examples here of videos where it's the same exact video, and it was made for BuzzFeed News, but there was something specific about it that we had another page where we thought, oh, maybe it'll actually do well on this page. So we ended up posting it on both, and in most of these scenarios, ended up way overperforming on the page that was more specific. So in this example, it's about a kitten and a Navy pilot, and it's just really heartwarming and adorable and about cats. And so we posted it on BuzzFeed News, and it did okay. It has 1,700 shares, but then we posted it on animals, and it has 18,000 shares there. And I think that's because the audience that we have on our animals page loves cats, loves dogs, loves these heartwarming social news stories, while our news page, sometimes they'll hit, but a lot of times they're looking for more of the hard-hitting stuff. We had a similar example with a video that we made after Pride. So again, it was made by the BuzzFeed News team, so we posted it on news, and it kind of flopped for us. And then we also posted it on our BuzzFeed LGBT page, and again, it way overperformed compared to the news one. And then in the reverse of that, we have a page called Paralike that is for a Latino audience, and that team made this video, What's Going On in Venezuela, and the video performed super well. It has 126,000 shares, which is really great for that page, but it was a very news-style video. And so we decided to also post it on BuzzFeed News, and it ended up getting like 375,000 shares on news. So I think what this all kind of says is that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that, because I should have said this before, but all of the first two pages are smaller in terms of followers than BuzzFeed News is, but the content still overperformed because it was made for that audience. So at the end of the day, the size of your page doesn't matter as much as like, how perfect is this piece of content for your audience?
How do you reconcile that with something like Tasty, though, that appeals to so many that I don't know, is it a challenge to really define that audience when the content is so pleasing to so many people?
Yeah, and actually with Tasty specifically, we've just started segmenting that audience more too. So we launched last week something called Tasty Junior, which is tasty for kids, or for parents to make food for their kids.
Follow it.
And we're planning on launching a vegetarian one in the coming weeks, and we're doing the same thing with Nifty. We just launched Nifty Science, and we're launching Nifty Outdoors and Nifty Pets. So I think it makes sense to have like your big umbrella, but then also to make sure that you're segmenting it so that people who want one thing and maybe they don't want other things can still know where they can get that thing.
So how do you decide to do something new? You know, like I'm sure people come up with ideas all the time that could fit in one umbrella or another, but how do you actually make that leap to say, we're gonna dedicate an entire channel to this?
Yeah, totally. So data is how we decide. So we use the word signal all the time. We have a lot of weird like buzzwords at BuzzFeed that maybe don't mean anything to anyone else, but we're always talking about signal, and is your video getting signal? So signal for us is views on YouTube and shares on Facebook. And just to, I guess, back up a little bit, the way that BuzzFeed is structured is video producers are very autonomous. So for the most part, they can kind of make whatever they want, and it's up to them to really use data and the performance of their past content to inform what new content they make. And every team is just constantly experimenting and trying to figure out what should be our next big thing. And so Tasty came to be because we just were seeing, it was such an obvious one for us. Food content was everywhere, and every time we posted something around food, it really overperformed. So we had a small team of people start just making lots of different, now we would call them tasty videos, before they were like really short food videos, and kind of seeing what worked. And then we decided to launch Tasty, and that was just absolutely crazy how quickly it grew. Like, we didn't know a Facebook page could do that. It actually, Facebook thought it was spam and turned off likes at one point for us when we were originally growing, because it was just growing so quickly. So then it was like, okay, how do we recreate the success of Tasty? So it started with like a brainstorm, what are different things that are kind of a nearest neighbor to Tasty that we could do, and we thought about style, we thought about DIY, we thought about travel, there was like lots of things. So we had a small team of people start chipping away and like making that type of content to see what would work. And one of the producers focusing on DIY ended up making these 2 videos about how to clean your microwave and how to make a marble mug, and they both, we had a DIY, like a generalist DIY page already, so we posted them on there, and as you can see, like these are the video view analytics from the DIY page, and it was like pretty small and slow up until December, and then that first big spike is the first video that we posted, and that second big spike is the second video we posted. And that to us, like, you look at that chart and you don't have to be a data scientist to realize like that's a signal, we're seeing something there. So we wait till we see something like that, and then we're very fast. It's like, all right, everyone on board, let's swarm this, let's make a bunch of content, and let's launch this new thing. And so since Nifty, we just launched a web page called Bring Me, and there's a couple more in the works, so.
So what's your biggest success story? Like personally, what is the one piece of content that you've created that validates your position in this industry?
I mean, I don't necessarily create content. I feel like I just work very closely with producers to help inform them what to make. So Tasty is probably one of the things that I'm most proud of because I was like there through all of that. I didn't come up with the name, but Eugene came to my desk and I was like, help me come up with a name, and he said Tasty. And I was like, that's it, that's the name. So yeah, I think I'm really proud of that. And then, I mean, I don't know if there's one specific piece of content. It's more just like the fact that when I started, we didn't even have a Facebook page, and now, you know, we've learned so much, and I think another thing that would have been crazy to tell the executives at BuzzFeed a few years ago is that we'd have all these pages that don't even have BuzzFeed in the name. But that was kind of one thing that I think I spearheaded, where after the huge success of the BuzzFeed video page, which was the first page I ever ran, Zay Frank, who's now the president of BuzzFeed Entertainment Group, was like, okay, Macy, like if you could just start any page you want, what would it be? And I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared. But I kind of pitched this idea of having a page that didn't have BuzzFeed in the name, and then it worked really well. It's the Story of My Life page. And that kind of catapulted us into where we are today, where we're creating all of these pages that we're sort of, I think, thinking of it like BuzzFeed is the network, and then these are all of the different channels. So maybe, you know, Comedy Central is, there's Viacom, and there's Comedy Central. You might not even know that Comedy Central is owned by Viacom, so like BuzzFeed would be the Viacom there, and then we'd have all these different things for different people who want different things.
So I'm curious, what in your Cronkite education prepared you for this role? What do you look back on most fondly? Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy because 2011 was not that long ago, but social media has changed so much since then. It's even changed so much since I started working at BuzzFeed. Like I said, BuzzFeed Main had a Facebook page, but we didn't have like a BuzzFeed video page. So much of this didn't exist. So I definitely can't say that, you know, I learned about like the things that you're teaching in your class, which are so valuable now. But I think just like last night I was talking at this prospective students thing, and Mark was talking about how the Cronkite School is really like a teaching hospital, and I had that same experience. I did Newswatch, and I think being able to really like get your hands dirty and learn the actual skills that you need to have a job is so valuable. And there were times where I was really stressed out, and I was balancing like an internship and Newswatch and all of these things, but all of that really prepared me to go into the workforce and just like be super determined and know that just because something doesn't work out the way you want it to, you can be resourceful and find a different way to make it work.
And so because the social media landscape has changed so much, even in such a few short years, what do you recommend that students or anybody in this room who wants to follow in your footsteps, what do you recommend that they do now to best prepare them for a job in your field?
Yeah, totally. I think internships are huge. Like when I'm looking through resumes, if you have internships at any company doing social media. Honestly, like the weirder, the better. I think that's super important. And then your own social media is really important too. And I don't think it's about how many followers you have. It's more about the way that you have curated your feed, and do you have a voice, and can you kind of see like a consistent brand when you go to your page. And then I think networking is really important. I mean, I actually, I didn't know anyone at BuzzFeed. It was much, much smaller then, but I just blindly applied and magically
Talk about
like
that, though.
got...
I've heard your story about how you got your job, and I'm sure everyone's curious. I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah, well, so I graduated, and the Cronkite School actually really, really helped me in getting a job at Right This Minute, which is a nationally syndicated show out of Phoenix. And so I started working there really quickly after graduation, and I was there for 2 years. But doing work there, the job was to find viral videos online and then reach out to the people and that sort of thing. And BuzzFeed kind of became a source for me. And I had always wanted to live in LA, so I was like constantly just looking at their job postings. I had my resume like ready to go. And then one day this job listing came up for, the title was video curator, and I read it, and it was exactly what I was doing at Right This Minute. So I spent a lot of time trying to make the perfect cover letter, and then I applied on a Friday night, and I actually heard back on a Sunday. But yeah, one story that I told in Susan's class today that I think is kind of valuable is, so I flew out to LA and I interviewed, and the interview actually went pretty poorly. The guy that interviewed me, he was my manager for about a year, but we're so, so different. And so I think it just was a really awkward interview, and afterwards I called my mom and my friends. I was like, I did not get that job, and that really sucks because I flew out to LA just for this interview and whatever. But at the end of the interview, I asked him, okay, like what are some next steps? What can I do now? And he's like, oh, write some posts on BuzzFeed.com, which is like, for me with the video thing, it was find a video, you know, make some GIFs, turn it into like a post, and send them to me. So I got back to Arizona, and I wrote 4 posts that I thought were really good, and I emailed them to him the next day. And then he replied with some pretty harsh feedback about them. And I think he thought that was gonna be the end of it. But instead, I followed up and I was like, I fixed the 4 that you gave me notes on, and here's 4 other ones that I think, you know, are more what you're looking for based on your feedback. And even though, honestly, I didn't necessarily agree with his feedback, I was like, if he's the one that's gonna hire me, so I might as well try and do exactly what he said. And then I never heard from him again. I just heard from the recruiter offering me the job. So I think it's just like a lesson in being persistent and like being really welcome to feedback. And because I think if I would have just, you know, not done that, I definitely would not have gotten the job. So.
Neat. And so last question, what is your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part is definitely the people that I work with. Everyone is just so talented, and I think the fact that Jonah and Zay have really created this environment where everyone is so autonomous makes it so that everyone's like really passionate about what they're doing, and Jonah kind of describes it like everyone is their own small business owner. So you're not like an employee at the small business, you're owning your own small business, and so you get really scrappy and you really care about the content that you're making. And so because of that, I just feel like even though we have gotten so much bigger, I can have some random idea and walk into Zay's office and ask him about it, and if he thinks it's smart, he'll be like, yeah, go do it right now. So there's not like this big chain of approval and that kind of stuff. So that's my favorite thing.
It's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for coming. I want to open it up to the floor for questions. I will warn you that our star Macy is literally exiting the stage to a plane, so she won't have time afterward to take questions. So this is your chance. Come on up, ask away. She is here for you. Who's got one?
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful presentation, Macy.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. What do you know or have you found is the average attention span for each of the different platforms?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, not to divert it, but I think the main thing that matters is the content. So if, like, we've seen some videos, like we have a series, well, two on YouTube right now. One's called Worth It, and the other is called Unsolved. They're really awesome if you guys want to check them out. But they're like 20-minute videos, and we've never seen the kind of retention that we've seen on these videos. And I think in the past before them, we thought, oh, it's because people just don't want to watch something longer than 5 minutes on YouTube. But really, if you keep the content super engaging, people will watch it. I think on Facebook, it's also hard to say because they count the 3 seconds as a view, so it kind of skews it, so it's harder to say, but it's definitely shorter. But again, like with Tasty, we have great retention on those videos because they are so captivating that you just want to keep watching the whole thing. So YouTube's definitely like the longest attention span, and then I would say that's followed by Facebook. Twitter is such a different beast than the others, and same with Instagram. We don't really have that kind of data, but. Hi.
So my question is kind of distinguishing between what I would like to call quality content and fluff.
Okay.
Right? So what, in your opinion, are very clear examples of what you understand those two things to be in your own experience?
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't technically work for the news organization, so I think everything that I post could be considered fluff. But I think, I mean, it really depends, but we call it social news, and it's these videos or posts or whatever that are more designed for people to share. So like the example of the brother who took his little sister to the father-daughter dance, like I think a lot of people might consider that fluff, but it also, in today's world, I think those are the types of news stories that a lot of people want to share. And the cool thing about that is, similarly to how that stuff can fund our great journalism, we can also grow our audience using that type of content. And then when the really important stuff does happen, we already have this audience there, so there's more eyeballs on it.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yeah.
So I think the distinction between, I'll use the gentleman's terms, quality content and fluff, the line can be fuzzy, but I also think that there's quality fluff.
Totally.
So, but I'm curious about, you know, do you create content more for it to be shared, since that is your kind of your KPI?
Yes.
Or are you creating content in a delivery method that works because that's how it's best consumed? Like, are you creating it to be consumed or shared?
We're creating it to be shared, but to be consumed and then shared, which I think is important because there's a lot of places that are maybe just creating content because they want people to click on it, but if, like, the next step in that is if you click on it, you read it, you love it, then you share it, and that's how you, like, form connections with other people, and that's how you grow an audience. So that's really what we're focused on. Yeah, and I think the news, like, Ben Smith would probably have a slightly different answer than I have to that. But I think his team still really does focus a lot on making shareable content.
But so if you created a piece of content that was consumed by 1 million people but shared by none, you would not consider it a success?
For the most part, no, but again, would probably be a little different with the news organization than with my organization. And it depends on the content to some extent. Like, we make a lot of sex-positive content too, and we know that that doesn't share well, but we think that's important, and so we still create it and post it.
So just a quick follow-up to that.
Yeah.
Would you say that that content then, like, how much would you evaluate that content to be what I call, like, content that I can take back into my life versus just having it be reactionary rather than proactive content? Like, do you claim to have proactive content versus simply reactionary content?
I don't know. Can you stay? Because I might need a little more insight into what you mean by that. Like, what do you mean by that, I guess? Give me an example.
So, reactionary content.
Speak into the microphone though, so everyone can hear you.
I'll just caveat this then. What I mean by reactionary content is content that is produced directly in response to an event or some sort of, I guess, cultural ripple, rather than proactive content, which is then created with the intention to create said social ripple. What would you distinguish the vast majority of your content to be, reactionary or proactive, and why?
I mean, I don't know if I'm understanding your question correctly, but I feel like news is always somewhat reactionary because you're reporting on things that have already happened. So I would say that a lot of it is reacting to things that are happening in the world, but you know, we're also, I think, creating a lot of new formats and a lot of exciting things. Like if you look at what BuzzFeed did on YouTube and then how YouTube has changed because of that, I think that was us like proactively through experimentation coming up with lots of different formats and topics that weren't really being talked about before.
I guess, is the vast majority of your content created after the fact, once you find a trend that's taken off, or more created because you want to start a trend itself?
Yeah, I think it's honestly a huge combination of both. A huge part of what we do is iterating off of our own success. So lots of our brainstorms will be around content that we've seen tons of success with in the past, and how can we take it a step further, or like, what do we think is the little thing about it that made it work? So that would maybe be like 50%, but the other 50% is very much like, what's the next thing? What's the next tasty? What's the next?
I want to make sure that everyone has a chance
just
to answer the question.
last bit. Would you feel like that's a model that's appropriate for an industry leader? Do you think that's a quality that an industry leader would have following that exact model? That's my last bit.
Yes, I do.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
What?
Maybe there's another shot for a short girl. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, short girl, yes.
Okay, it's the social media era, and a lot of people and organizations are being defined by the clicks. But then it's been verified also that the clicks are not that profitable. So how would you define what you're doing? How viable is it financially?
Yeah, so BuzzFeed has an interesting model because we do native advertising, so it's not about putting like banner ads on the site. All of our revenue comes through brands coming to us and having us create content that would seem like any other content we would post. So for example, Oreo could come to us and say, we want to make 5 tasty videos, and they would pay us money to create the videos, and we would post them on Tasty. So I think because of that, for BuzzFeed making money, yes, it's totally about how many people come to our site and how many views our videos get and stuff like that, because that helps our sellers go out and sell our product. But at the end of the day, it's really about BuzzFeed's recognition around the world, makes it so that brands want to come to us and partner with us to create content. So we don't need people to click on our banner ads because it's more about making content for them.
For students applying for internships with BuzzFeed, what are you guys looking for with that?
Yeah, I think, again, like any internships that you've already had prior to BuzzFeed that might be social media related are super awesome. But even just like doing something like Jessica's program, like I went to lunch with some students in that program today, and they knew so much about social media, and they're totally thinking about it in the right way. So I think any experience you can have is great. And then also with your own personal social profile, again, just like making sure you're consistently posting, that you're on every platform, and that what you're doing, again, it doesn't matter if you have 1 million followers or 100 followers, as long as you're curating something that's interesting and you have a voice, that's really important. Yeah.
Hi, so my question is kind of related to that, but what do you think current students or recent graduates can do to really distinguish themselves? Obviously, a lot of people want to work for companies, at least like BuzzFeed, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like totally repeat myself, but again, like making sure your own social is really like up to par. And then like just, not being discouraged, like if you feel like, oh, I don't know anyone there, so there's no way I'm gonna get a job, like look at the postings, apply, keep applying, don't give up. And then if you do get an interview, I think something that's really important to me is that you know a lot about the company and can talk about what's going on there and interesting thoughts you have, how we could improve, what we're doing well. I think I interview a lot of people who, when I ask them like their favorite BuzzFeed video, which should be such an easy, like that should just be a super easy question. A lot of people will have like a really generic, like, oh, I love the BuzzFeed yellow stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, give me more than that. So I think just coming really prepared and having done a lot of research at the company is also really important.
Just to go off what you just said, my favorite BuzzFeed video is the Try Guys one where they do like the battle cars kind of, and the jump out killed me.
And that's actually a branded video.
I loved it.
So that's how we make money. So that's amazing that you like that because it's supposed to kind of like fit right in.
Yeah, but like all my sisters, I'm one of 6, and we're just like such big BuzzFeed fans. I'm sure you saw me like taking pictures of you over there. So I was sending them to my sisters. But like for BuzzFeed, most of the people who we see like as consumers and the people who get on camera are kind of in their later 20s or mid 20s. Do you guys have a lot of workers who are like fresh out of school and fresh out of Cronkite, or is it kind of like you go do something else and then when you're ready you kind of come back? And
Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag, but there's definitely, especially on my team, there's a lot of people who just graduated. So a big like path to hire at BuzzFeed is doing our internship and then our fellowship and then getting hired on full time. And I would say probably 70% of the people that do the internship and fellowship are within a year of graduating from college. So yeah, there's lots of young people.
And lots of Cronkite grads in the BuzzFeed circle these days.
okay, I just have to say while I'm here in front of someone with a BuzzFeed mic, please, you have to tell Keith I love him. I love him.
I wish I had my phone so I could videotape this. I will let him know.
Hannah Ream, Cronkite, ASU. I love it.
I love it.
Hi.
Hi.
BuzzFeed creates content spread across a lot of different social media, right? So what social media platform do you think performs like the best? Like, you know, I mean, there's Facebook and Twitter, and I know you have like lots of different pages, but which, like, is it Facebook or Twitter, or like which one is the best?
Yeah, totally. I think, you know, every platform really has like its pros and cons, but Facebook right now, for us, it's definitely like we're getting the most video views, we're driving the most traffic to BuzzFeed.com. But you know, YouTube is a really, really important platform for us as well. And for news, Twitter is super important. We don't do as much on Twitter with video. And even Pinterest, like they're launching a video product that we're beta testing right now, and we're really excited about it. So, and Snapchat, like with Snapchat Discover, that's been really exciting for us the past about year and a half being on that platform. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because again, every platform really has something special about it. But Facebook is, if I had to pick, that would probably be what I would pick. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, due to the election earlier and all the controversy that's been going on, how does posting about, well, it has to do with, due to all the presidential and racism coming out as much as it has, how does that affect you guys in posting things even though you're trying to be funny?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, you know, we try to be funny with some things, but I think we also have to be really careful that we're respecting people and how they might be feeling after the election. So something like the countdown, to me at least, it's like cheeky and a little clever, but it's not going too far. And I think there's always this line that we're making sure, or trying to make sure that we don't cross into the point where we're offending people or alienating any one audience. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Hi, I'm Melanie, and I'm actually on Jessica's team in social and craft news.
Well, let me just interrupt you and say that Melanie is special. It's very fitting that you're the last one. She actually has her own food video channel on YouTube.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and I actually started being inspired by Food Network and then was inspired by Tasty. So I kind of mixed the two a little bit together.
Awesome.
And I'm learning through social and all of these platforms and analytics tools. So then my question to you is actually what analytics tools did you know going into this position, and what analytics tools do you think would be really important for us to know, maybe applying for a position that's similar, or just going into the digital world?
Very good question. So actually, I think now, again, this was 3.5 years ago, so much has changed, but I came on as this video curator position, and I sort of just fell into the social role. So I really, unfortunately, did not have a lot of analytics experience, and I've had to kind of learn along the way. One thing that's kind of unique about BuzzFeed is, like Jonah says, we're a media company, but we have really great tech. And I think a lot of people actually might consider us a tech company. So most of our analytics tools and our publishing tools are actually built in-house. So we have an incredible team of product designers and engineers who have made so many really amazing analytics tools specific for our needs. And we're constantly, they're working really closely with my team and with producers so that it can be as easy to use as possible and really get us what we need. Looker is a tool that, I don't know if you guys ever use Looker. Okay, but that's something that we've been using a lot because you can build your own custom dashboards there. And then honestly, I think just knowing a lot about the platform-specific analytics is really valuable, because that's one thing that no matter what, I think lots of different companies that you go to will use different tools, but the native tools of that platform are you're always gonna need to know those. So if you can be an expert in those and really hone that, then that's probably the most valuable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Actually, I have a small one. What was your favorite video that you been in?
I honestly love the drunk girls get surprised with puppies. And then there was another one, I don't even know the exact name, but I love stalking people on social media. And we rented a van and we went to Silver Lake, and Henry, who is the guy that hired me, was out with the microphone interviewing people, this fake interview. And then me and a couple other people were sitting in the van, and we could hear what he was saying. And we were stalking them on social media and then feeding back the information to him. So he would be I don't even remember what he pretended to be asking them about. And then he'd be like, wait, don't you live on 320 West Elm Street? And but he would do it more slowly. So he'd be like, wait, do you have a brother named Rick or whatever? And then really freak them out. And that was probably one of the most fun ones to be a part of, just because it was really hilarious. And then we'd get out of the van at the end, and the people would be like, what the heck is going on? And that was 3 years ago, so no one really knew what BuzzFeed was, so it just added to the entertainment.
Well, on behalf of everyone in this room, and we have one more question. Go ahead.
The person who interviewed you, did you ever tell them the first impression you had when you were at the interview?
Oh yeah, he knows. Yeah, we've had lots of talks about as our relationship has developed over the last 3.5 years, because it's been kind of funny, because now we're really good friends. But yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming, Macy. Like I said, on behalf of everyone in this room, everyone at the Cronkite School, and all of the students who aspire to either have a social media career or just make really cool stuff. We thank you so much for your insight and for being here. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you so much. It's really fun to be back.
Thanks everyone for joining us.